one of the challenges that I have, and I think that probably most have, is how do you balance the day-to-day tools with the big picture tools. So I use RoadMonk today for roadmaps. And one of the challenges we have is RoadMonk, you can push epics from Jira into RoadMonk, but they have on their roadmap to do bidirectional sync with epics between RoadMonk and Jira. But sometimes the ticket that I need on the roadmap isn't even an epic. It's a single story, but it's so important to either internally or externally, if it's a client-facing roadmap, that I need that story there. And so really bridging how to keep all these different pieces up to date with the same data. I mean, we had a release this morning of some functionality, and I have a page in Confluence that I keep updated for this set of people. I have the release notes that have an internal and client-facing version. Then I've got Jira that needs to get updated and close the fixed for versions within the releases within my Jira project. And then I've got RoadMonk, and none of it syncs together, and none of it talks together. I have to do each piece individually, and I need to go check it out. And I have a reminder on my calendar on Fridays to make sure that I've done that for that particular week. I tend to do it the day of the releases, but at the same time, I have all these different pieces, and so those pieces aren't connected. And people are trying to connect those pieces, but even there's nuances with that connection, as I mentioned, between syncing Jira and RoadMonk together, that I need that story to surface. And how do I get that story? Do I create a epic with one story in it? I mean, I guess I could, but then I've got additional overhead to do that every time I have something that I need to get surfaced if I was to make that connection. Some of the other tools, you got Slack. So then you also have this whole nature of Slack where I used to send hundreds of emails a day, and I lived in email, and now I can go into email and I sent 5 emails for the day or 10 emails for the day. I was like, how did this change? And it's changed because so much communication happens in Slack. Even if it's something that normally should be an email, you're just so used to living in Slack that you post that comment, and it might not be something that they're going to get to right this minute anyway, and so it's not even a conversation. But instead of dropping an email and saying, hey, by the way, can you take a look at this later, you drop that same comment that you would normally just send an email out into Slack for later purposes. So a lot of conversation that's happening in Slack, and it's, Slack you can search and everything, but some of that stuff gets lost. The decisions in there, and it's hard to make sure that all the decisions you make in Slack get back into the Jira ticket in the requirements or the acceptance criteria or back into the various pieces. Especially we're juggling a number of different product lines. I mentioned, spreading thin. I've got a legacy version of the front end, and I've got this next gen version. So I've got 2 different release kind of branches that happen that essentially are different releases. And then I have another piece of a different piece of a product that's part of this whole thing, but it has its own set of releases. And there was a point this week, it's like, well, did that go or did that not go? And I can't remember. And it's all in Slack, but trying to come back to that moment in time when you're juggling so many pieces of like, did that release go out? I know it did. We have to go back to talk to the release engineer to make sure that it did or didn't go out, and so that we can kind of do the next steps of following up. So a lot of that was Slack, and then things getting lost, or those comments in GitHub that ultimately get posted as issues in GitHub, and I don't go into GitHub in that way. So if you comment to me, I will get it, but if you don't comment to me, I don't live in GitHub, I live in Jira. So developers who comment issues in there, I don't get. So I don't have that connection into it to see kind of the conversation there. Now, could I? Yes, I just haven't made that jump yet.